What's up, everybody? It is Monday. It is the first day of the week that you get to start tackling things, man. You get to start going after it. And guess what? If last week was a bad week, or if last week was a hard week, or you got off course, and maybe over the weekend you were kicking yourself saying, "Oh my God, I'm so off course." Well, guess what, guys? Monday is that first day that you pull that compass out and you get yourself back on course. That's what Mondays are for, man. That's your reset day. That's when we get back on track. We pull out, if you maybe you haven't pulled out your journal. I know I use my JR Overcome journal that comes straight out of my 72 hours course, and I pull that out, and maybe I got sidetracked. For me, that's part of my morning routine, but maybe you haven't pulled it out. Maybe you haven't looked at your goals. Maybe you haven't been performing the areas of the Pentagon and Peak Performance. Whatever it is, Monday is that first day to get back on track. So that's what's so great about Mondays. But for right now, I know we're all in the quarantine. And it's easy to get, if you're by yourself, I'm sure loneliness is starting to set in. My mom lives by herself, and I talked to her. She called me on Saturday and just said, "Hey, can I talk to everybody? I'm just starting to feel lonely." And my mom actually had surgery several weeks prior to the quarantine. And she had ear surgery, and the doctor said, "Don't get sick." So she's actually been in quarantine for over 2 months now. So those things can set in. The other thing that can set in is if you're on top of everybody, friction. We can start getting some of that tension that occurs when everybody's on top of each other. So that is a little bit of what I want to talk to you about today, a little bit of perspective. And it starts with this. The first thing I want to talk about is, sometimes when stress starts to build up, even if it's lower level stress, sometimes when it's lower level stress, it can start to build up, and we start to lose perspective of life around us. And little things become big things when the reality is they're still little things. But because we've allowed stress to build up, it makes it seem like a bigger thing. So perspective is such a big deal when you're in a stress-filled environment. It is that ability to take a breath and realize maybe it's not such a big deal. I'm watching a lot of people that the tension is building. I'm watching these protests that are happening around the country, but, and I can appreciate that businesses are struggling. Our business is struggling. I mean, there's no lie in that, but hey, you got to stay positive. You got to keep driving forward. You got to maintain that perspective. Yesterday, a really good friend of mine, Ozzy, was on a motorcycle ride. Ozzy is an amazing wounded warrior Marine, went through some incredibly hard combat in Fallujah in 2004, who really struggled with the mental demons of war, losing fellow Marines. And took him years. He went through my Overcome Academy. We set a new course, a new direction, a new mission. We evaluated all aspects, and Ozzy got back on course, man, and he's been crushing it. Well, yesterday he was on a motorcycle ride, and one of the riders that was up in front of him, they had a wreck. And the girlfriend of the guy that was riding fell off the bike and hit her head and was instantly killed. And Ozzy saw all this happen. So why do I tell you that? I tell you that for perspective. One, this life is short. It can be gone in the blink of an eye. We never know when. I personally believe everybody's days are numbered. I believe that if it's not your time to go, you won't go. But I also believe when it's your time to go, you will go. All our days, someday we're all gonna check out of this life. And the bottom line is this, you can't take it for granted. You can't sweat the small stuff. You can't let this stress and friction build up, because the reality is, the alternative is you're not going to be here anymore. So that's my statement to you. If you're feeling a little friction, if you're feeling a little stress, if you're feeling the impact of all the craziness that's out there, when that stress is bubbling up and you can feel it in your chest and you can feel the tension in your head, I want you to take a breath. I can't tell you how often in combat or in high stress situations I had to take a breath. We know that when you take that deep breath, and maybe I need to take several breaths, it clears the mind, it forces oxygen into your brain, it slows things down for a minute for you to get some equilibrium. And then I always recognize perspective. I take a look around me and I say, you know what, this is bad, but it can always be worse. There is always positivity in the face of negativity. Maybe you don't see it right in that moment, but it's there. And by taking that breath and having that positivity. So right now, while you're feeling this stress, while you're feeling this anxiety, maybe your spouse and you, the quarreling has started, or maybe your kids are just on your nerves and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm having to, teach you homework, or I'm having to do all these things right now. Look for the positive in it. And I want you to take that breath and I want you to say, you know what? Nobody's shooting at me and nobody's dying. If those two things aren't happening, guys, it's really not that big a deal in the grand scheme of life. So just remember that lesson, perspective. And I tell myself the same thing, because I'm human. I'm human. Even though I've been through some pretty incredibly hard things in my life, I still get those stress bubbles that, the boiling of the stress inside me that bubbles up. And the next thing I know, I'm like, arr! And I try and take that breath. And I just say, nobody's shooting at me. Nobody's dying. So, guys, I want you to maintain that perspective. I want you to think about my friend Ozzy. He that was an incredibly traumatic thing that he witnessed. It impacted all kinds of people. Here we are in the middle of this coronavirus. There are people that are stressing out because they're, potentially losing their jobs, or just because of the friction of this situation, the boiling point that's happened across our country. And the reality is, the young lady lost her life yesterday. And so she's not able to come back. She's not able to attack a Monday. She's not able to get back on course. You have that ability. You have the ability to take that breath. So that is what this Monday Muster is about. When things start bubbling up, when the stress starts getting too great, take that breath, look around, identify the positive, the little things that are amazing, and be thankful, and be able to drive forward and say, okay, nobody's shooting at me, nobody's dying. All right, guys, that is Monday Muster for this week. I hope that it is the compass reset you needed to get yourself back on course. I really appreciate all of you. Stay strong in this. We're going to get through this. This is merely another life storm. Every storm has an end. This one will end too. And I will see you on the other side. And you won't just survive. We will thrive. And we will have better perspective through it. So that's Monday Muster this week. I will see you guys next week.